My review of the Moby Grape album, Wow. It was released in 1968 and produced by David Rubinson. So when this album came out, it came with another album called Grape Jam. I'm going to review that next week as kind of its own thing, mainly because it's late and I didn't want to listen to two albums tonight. So yeah, this album, Wow, their second album, I got this a long time ago. First I got it on CD, and then that CD got stolen. I got a new CD of it. This is the Sunday's version of it. I think these were only in print for a really short time because I think something happened with like their former manager. So it was kind of expensive. I honestly don't remember what I paid for this one. I found it on eBay, but these are kind of more expensive CDs, I think. At least the ones I could find were. This I got at the record store like 2 years ago. So yeah, I love this album cover. It's trippy. This is kind of like, I would say this is like their most psychedelic album. I've heard this album described as having like a bad case of Sgt. Pepper's-itis, and you can definitely tell they're like influenced by that and like that style of music that was going on at that time. There's a bunch of orchestration and stuff added. There's I don't know, some kind of more joke songs on here. So it's a really kind of just far out different album compared to the first album, which was really like a lot of just straightforward, catchy songs. This, they definitely get into the weird territory, and I really like it for that. I'm sure some people would like it less for that than the first album. Definitely, if you're not into like the whole psychedelic thing, you're probably going to have more of a problem with this one. Whereas I don't think you would have a problem with the first one at all, really. So the album starts with a Miller Stevenson song, "The Place and Time," and I feel like this song is kind of almost like the mission statement of the album, and it also kind of just shows you what's in store on the album as far as like the changes they've made to the sound, adding in the orchestration, and the trippy sounds and stuff. That's all there in this song. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool little song. It's pretty short, and it's definitely kind of weird structure-wise. But it's a cool intro to the song, a good way to start the album. Second track, "Murder in My Heart for the Judge," song by Stevenson. This I was familiar with going into this album, because this was like the third Moby Grape album I got when I was getting the studio albums. I had the first one and the third one before this. But the first thing by them I got was a Greatest Hits, and it had a lot of tracks off this album on there. So I was already familiar with this one and already liked it a lot, which is a really good rocker. It's got a great vocal from Mosley, really cool bass from him as well. I really like Jerry Miller's guitar solo. Just a lot of cool guitars in the song. Really catchy song. So it's a really good one. This song actually feels like it could have fit on the first album. The third track, "Bitter Wind," Bob Mosley song, and this is actually a different version. The Greatest Hits album I had an alternate version of this, like an electric version. This is kind of an acoustic version. I was really surprised when I first heard this one, and I didn't like it at first because I was already familiar with the electric version, and that one I liked quite a bit. But this one's actually grown on me, and I like this one now in the context of this album. I still really enjoy the other version of it, but this one's cool. I could see people liking the other version better because it's more straightforward. This has a lot of the trippy stuff and weird things that they were doing on this album kind of incorporated into it, which I could see, kind of putting some people off this version. The fourth track, "Can't Be So Bad," Miller Stevenson song. This is a cool rocker with some cool horns and stuff going on. I really like Miller's guitar on this one. I think the horn parts and the guitar are pretty cool together. I think Stevenson's drumming is pretty cool on this one as well. And I like the lead vocal. I'm not sure who it is. It's probably either Miller or Stevenson, not sure which one. The fifth track, "Just Like Gene Autry," a Foxtrot, a Skip Spence song, And this is a pretty weird track. Actually, on the record, you have to like switch the speed of it. It has an announcement where I think it's the producer of the record comes on and he's like, you have to switch this to, I can't remember what the RPM is or whatever, but it like stops and you got to get up and change the speed and pick the needle up and put it back down. So that's kind of weird. And the song itself is like this weird 30s music type thing. It sounds all scratchy, like it's coming in through like an old radio or something, or the old like recording equipment. So yeah, it's really weird. It's got like an orchestra. They call it Lou Waxman's orchestra. Not sure if that's probably like a made-up person, I think, but not really sure. Yeah, it's just a really weird track, but I enjoy it a lot. I think it's just fun. I like that old sounding and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a really cool track, just really weird, and it's kind of cool but annoying on the record that you gotta like go and change the speed. The sixth track, Peter Lewis track, and it's actually his only one on the album, which kind of disappointed me a little bit going into this because I think his songs were my favorite of the first album. But I think like he kind of wasn't around for some of the recording of this album. I'm not really sure. Like I said, this guy's kind of, it's hard for me to like, or at least I haven't been able to find like that much stuff on their background. I have like one book, and it was a long time ago that I read it. I probably should have reread it before doing this, but I didn't really have time. But I know he's not on the Grape Jam album that was recorded with this album, so I'm not sure if he was around for like all of this or not. But anyway, this track, that he has on here, it kind of reminds me of almost like a successor to Sitting by My Window, or Sitting by the Window, which was my favorite song off the first album. It's just got some really cool guitar in it, and his vocals really good. Just really kind of pretty like ballad type song. The orchestration I think works really well with the guitars. Just a really cool song. The 7-track Motorcycle Irene, another Skip Spence song, and this one is probably like, it's another one that's like close to my favorite track on here. It's kind of really dark and kind of like funny in a really dark way. It's got like a motorcycle crash in it. Really catchy song. Really like Stevenson's drumming in it, just like the feel of his playing I think is great. So that one is another really really big highlight for me. That and He were both on the Greatest Hits album I had, so I was familiar with those going into this album. The 8th track, 3/4, Bob Mosley song. It's a nice ballad. They don't say the name in it, so every time I look at the name I'm like, what does this sound like? But I like Mosley's vocal in it a lot. I think the extra music and stuff in it's cool. I like the drumming a lot as well. The 9th track, Funky Tunk, another one by Skip Spence. And this track to me is probably the only like misstep on this album. It's kind of a country rocker. Like the parts that they sing normal just sound like a little bit throwaway, but then you get to this one part, and I'm not sure who it is, if it's Skip Spence or like one of the other band members, but one of them starts singing like in a Donald Duck voice, and I mean like it's kind of funny. Like I don't really hate it or anything, but it's the one song like I would have been fine if they would have left this off the album. I mean, their playing's cool on it. Jerry gets a cool guitar solo, but just that Donald Duck voice like kind of really kills it. As far as like being able to enjoy it as a song, I mean, for being kind of funny and entertaining, it's fine. I feel like all the Skip Spence tracks on here have some kind of sense of humor, and then like by the third time it kind of wore out. But like I really like the first two that he did on here. And this was the time where he was having started having his issues that like led to his breakdown or whatever. And like I said, I'm not going to go into that a lot because I don't know a lot about it. But there was like an incident with him when they were recording this album, and then he had to be like hospitalized, and then he wasn't on the next couple albums, and really kind of never. I don't think he ever really came back and did as much stuff with them as some of the other guys did on like the reunions and stuff, because of what was going on with him. So unfortunately, this is like the last album where you have him as a full member of the band for every thing, and that really sucks because he was definitely a really talented and interesting songwriter and really important to this band. So yeah, unfortunately, like this track just kind of, it's the Donald Duck voice, it kind of misses. But like I said, I really love his other two tracks on here. Next, the 10th track, Rose Colored Eyes. This is another Bob Mosley track. Really cool, trippy sounding song. I like Mosley's vocal a lot. It's got more cool bass in it, more cool guitar. It's got this one kind of like weird part where they're kind of like yelling things back and forth at each other. Some cool drumming in that part, and then it kind of like goes back into the song and ends. But kind of an unusually structured song, but I like it a lot. The 11th track, Miller's Blues. This song by Miller and Mosley, and it's like a blues song. I really like Jerry Miller's guitar playing throughout it, though. I think it's really good. I like the way the horns play with them. I like Stevenson's drumming a lot on it. Mosley's vocals good. So another really solid track, and kind of the last like real track of the album, because the closing is an electric version of Naked If I Want To from the first album, which is just a really short kind of joke song. I do kind of like it as a way to close this album, though, because it's interesting to hear a different version of this, like an electric version. And it was, it's kind of an amusing, catchy little song, and it's really short. I do like the acoustic version better, but I think that this was a fun way to end the album. The CD version that I have has some bonus tracks that I want to mention mainly for one song. There's an alternate version of The Place and Time on here, which is kind of cool. Then there's Stop, which is an unreleased Peter Lewis song. And this song I really wish that they would have put on the album, Place of Funky Tonk, because it's a really catchy song. I think it's got some cool guitar on, some cool drumming. Peter Lewis has a really good vocal. Just a really cool track, and it's got this kind of different like instrumental like outro that's pretty cool. So they should have put that on instead of Funky Tonk, because that would have been like a highlight instead of the weakest track, I feel like. The 15th track, bonus track, is called Loosely Remembered, and that one's kind of okay, not one that I'm like ever got into that much. Then there's an alternate version of Miller's Blues, which is cool. And then What's to Choose and Scene, which I'm not really going to talk about those because they're actually on the next studio album. So Moby, Grape, Wow, I think a lot of people consider this kind of a step down from their first album. And I think a lot of people consider like the production changes, all the orchestration and stuff kind of a mistake. All like the trippy experiments and stuff. I like that kind of stuff though. I've always really liked kind of the weirder, psychedelic, like experimental stuff from this era. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. I'm also like glad that they didn't just go and repeat the first album. I like when bands go in different directions, and don't just keep like doing the same thing. And I think that they do like play to their strengths on this album, even though it does go off in different directions. I think that there's still some really solid songwriting on here. I actually think that the vocals, production-wise, sound better on this album than they do on the first album. I think that the instruments sound really good. Like, I really like the production on this album. quite a bit more than on the first album, even with all that and orchestration and stuff. I just think it all sounds really good. I think that the effects and when they go off and do the weird trippy things in the songs, I think that those fit into the songs really well and that they work really well. So yeah, I really like all of that about it. It's just, to me, it's got that one weak song on it, is really the only thing to me that makes it like any worse than the first album. Like, if it had Stop on it instead of Funky Tunk, I think it would be like definitely better than the first album for me. As it is, I'm not willing to say which one I think is better yet. But yeah, this, I could definitely see some people being kind of turned off more by this one because it does all the weird things and has the orchestration and stuff. But I think that this was also another really great album from these guys, even though they were going through some stuff and had some stuff going on during this album. And you know, it's really a shame that all happened during this album and that they, you know, were down to being a 4-person band on the next album and then a 3-person after that, and then everything else. So yeah, this another really great album from Moby Grape. You should definitely